I knew I was in trouble the moment she laughed. Not because it was loud, because it was confident. The kind of laugh that says, "Everyone here already agrees with me," before anyone's even spoken. It happened in the atrium of a billionaire's house. Marble floors, a chandelier big enough to have its own zip code, and a staircase that looked like it was built for people who never carry groceries. I was there because of my dad. My dad was the chauffeur, the guy who opened doors, stayed quiet, learned everyone's schedules, and pretended he didn't hear the things rich people say when they think staff is furniture. And I was there because he'd asked me to help. Just one errand. Just 1 hour. In my head, that sounded harmless. In that house, harmless doesn't exist. Everything is a test. Everything is a ranking system. Everything is a chance for someone to feel bigger. Her name was Lila, the billionaire's stepdaughter. Not biologically his, but you'd never know that from the way she occupied the space. She moved like the house belonged to her body. I'd seen her before, from a distance, when I'd come to pick my dad up after a late shift. She always looked through people. Never at them. Like she didn't see faces, she saw categories. That day she noticed me right away. I was standing near the entry hall, holding a small shopping bag with the logo of a high-end boutique printed on it. The bag wasn't mine. It was hers. My dad had told me the instructions in the car. Suite upstairs. Leave the bag on the chaise. Don't touch anything else. Don't talk to anyone unless they talk to you first. That last part wasn't a rule. It was survival. I nodded. Got it. He looked at me. Then away. And Noah, he added, voice quieter. If she says something, just don't take the bait. I frowned. Why would she say something? My dad didn't answer. His silence answered for him. Inside, Mrs. Caldwell, the house manager, pointed me toward the stairs. Take it up, she said briskly. She's waiting. I started walking. Halfway up the staircase, I heard heels. Fast. Purposeful. Excuse me, a voice called out, sweet as syrup and sharp as glass. I stopped and turned. Lila was at the base of the stairs, looking up at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. 2 friends stood behind her, dressed like they were attending a fashion show in a living room. Her gaze went straight to the bag. Oh, she said. So they let delivery boys climb the main stairs now. I felt my face warm instantly. My first instinct was to correct her. I'm not delivery. I'm the chauffeur's son. I'm just helping. I have permission, but I'd learned something in life. Explanations are snacks for people who want to humiliate you. They don't want the truth. They want you to look desperate. So I kept my voice calm. Mrs. Caldwell asked me to bring this to your suite, I said. Lila tilted her head like she was fascinated by a bug that had learned to speak. My suite, she repeated. You mean my room. Then she looked at her friends and smiled wider. He said sweet, she laughed. Like he's one of us. Her friends laughed too quickly. Like laughing was their job. I held the bag tighter. I'll leave it upstairs, I said, still calm. Lila took a step forward. No, she said. Just that. No explanation. I blinked. Excuse me. She lifted her chin. Give it to me, she said. Right here. Something about the way she said it made the hairs on my arms rise. Not because I was scared she'd snatch a bag, because it sounded like she was setting the stage for something. Still, I didn't want conflict. I started down a step to hand it over, and that's when she did it. She reached for the bag and, at the last second, let her fingers slip. On purpose. The bag dropped to the marble floor. The sound echoed. The tissue paper puffed out like a cloud. And inside, something small and shiny bounced once and rolled. Her friends gasped dramatically. Lila covered her mouth with both hands like she'd just witnessed a crime. Oh my God, she whispered, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. My bracelet. I looked down. A diamond bracelet. thin, sparkling, unmistakably expensive, had rolled to a stop near my shoe. My brain tried to catch up. That bracelet was not in the bag when my dad handed it to me. The bag had been sealed. Tissue paper. Box inside. No loose jewelry. Lila's eyes locked on me, and her voice changed from fake sweet to sharp accusation. "Why is my bracelet in your bag?" she demanded. My stomach dropped. "It wasn't," I said immediately. "I didn't—" Lila's voice rose. "So you're saying it just magically appeared?" she snapped, turning to her friends. "Do you hear this? He thinks I'm stupid." Her friends murmured and stared at me like I'd been caught on camera. I looked around instinctively. Staff had frozen. A maid stood still with a tray. A guard near the doorway shifted his weight. Mrs. Caldwell appeared in the hallway, her face tight with alarm. My dad wasn't there. He'd gone to park the car. And suddenly, I understood the real danger. She had waited until I was alone. Lila bent down, picked up the bracelet with 2 fingers like it was contaminated, and held it up. "You were going to steal this," she said, voice trembling with theatrical outrage. "You were going to walk right out with it." "I wasn't," I said, steady but urgent. "That bracelet wasn't in the bag." Lila pointed at me. "Then explain how it's on the floor next to your foot," she said. I opened my mouth. No words came, because no explanation sounded believable in that moment. Not in a house where people already wanted the simple story. Poor kid tries to steal rich girl's jewelry. Lila's eyes glinted, satisfied. "Call security," she said. My throat tightened. "Mrs.?" Caldwell stepped forward, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Miss Lila, perhaps we should verify—" "Verify what?" Lila cut in. "That he's a thief? Look at him." She said it like, "Look at him," was evidence. Then she turned slightly, projecting her voice, making sure anyone within 10 feet could hear. "This is why you don't let staff bring their families into private spaces," she said. Staff, families, private spaces. Every word was aimed like a knife, not at my actions, but at my existence. 2 guards approached, not rough, but firm. "Sir," one said, "we need to ask you some questions." I kept my hands visible. "I understand," I said, "but I didn't do anything." Lila's smile sharpened. "Of course you didn't," she said. "You're just holding a bag, dropping a bracelet, standing over it, and playing innocent." Her friends laughed softly again, and then she leaned closer, just enough that her perfume hit me, and she whispered so only I could hear. "Do you know what happens when a poor boy embarrasses me in my house?" I didn't answer, because I knew the truth. She didn't need me to embarrass her. She needed to embarrass me. The guards escorted me to a small sitting area near the library. Mrs. Caldwell followed, flustered. Staff watched from a distance with the same expression people wear when they're relieved it's not them. Lila stayed close behind like she wanted a front row seat to my downfall. "Search his pockets," she said. My heart pounded. I looked toward the guard. "Please check the cameras," I said quickly. "There are cameras. They'll show what happened." Lila rolled her eyes. "Cameras?" she scoffed. "How convenient." But the guard hesitated just for a second, and that hesitation was everything, because it meant not everyone in this house worshipped her. Mrs. Caldwell stepped in, voice careful. "There are cameras in the atrium," she admitted, "and near the staircase." Lila's eyes snapped to her. "You're taking his side," she hissed. "I'm taking procedure," Mrs. Caldwell said, and her voice shook slightly, but she held it. Lila's expression darkened. "Fine," she snapped. "Check your precious cameras. He'll still be guilty." The security chief arrived. Mr. Grayson, tall, calm, eyes like he'd seen every trick in the book. "What's going on?" he asked. Lila answered fast. "He tried to steal my bracelet," she declared. The bracelet was in his bag. I want him removed, and I want his father fired for bringing him here. My dad's name wasn't even said, but his job was already on the chopping block. Mr. Grayson looked at me. "Did you steal anything?" he asked. "No," I said. "She dropped the bag and the bracelet fell out, but it wasn't in the bag when I got it." Mr. Grayson's gaze didn't change. He looked at Mrs. Caldwell. "Pull the footage," he said. "Now." Lila's confidence flickered. "It's not necessary," she snapped. Mr. Grayson replied, calm as a locked door. "It is," he said. They took us to the security room. Screens, monitors, timestamps. The air smelled like electronics and stale coffee. My dad arrived halfway through, breathless, panic in his eyes when he saw me sitting there with guards nearby. "Noah," he whispered. "I'm okay," I said quickly. "I didn't do anything." He nodded, but I could see the fear underneath. Not fear of the truth, fear of power. Mr. Grayson played the footage. The atrium appeared on screen. There I was, on the stairs, holding the bag. There was Lila at the bottom. We watched in silence as she walked up, smiled and reached for the bag. Then the moment. Her fingers slipped. The bag dropped. The tissue paper burst. And the bracelet fell. But that wasn't the part that proved it. The part that proved it was the half-second before she dropped the bag. "Mr." Grayson paused the footage and zoomed in. Lila's left hand, hidden behind the bag, moved. And in that movement you could see it. A quick flick of her wrist, a small object dropping from her fingers into the open top of the bag as she accidentally let it fall. The bracelet didn't fall out because it was packed. It fell out because she planted it. My stomach turned. My dad's hand tightened on the chair back. Lila's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "Mr." Grayson rewound and played it again, slower. Plant, drop, gasp, accuse, everything scripted. The room went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when someone's mask falls off and everyone sees their real face underneath. Mr. Grayson turned to Lila. "Miss Lila," he said, voice even. "You placed the bracelet in the bag." Lila's mouth opened. "No," she said automatically. "That's not—" Mr. Grayson didn't raise his voice. "It is," he said. "And we have it on video." Lila's eyes darted to her friends like they could rescue her with laughter. They didn't laugh now. They stared at their phones. Suddenly, being associated with her didn't feel cute anymore. Mr. Grayson turned to Mrs. Caldwell. "Where is Mr. Ashford?" he asked. Mrs. Caldwell swallowed. "He's in a meeting." Mr. Grayson nodded. "Get him." Lila's voice rose, panicked. "You don't have to involve him," she snapped. "This can be handled privately." Mr. Grayson's gaze didn't soften. "It already became public when you accused someone in the atrium," he said. "Now it becomes official." My dad finally spoke, voice shaking with controlled rage. "Why?" he asked her. "Why would you do that to my son?" Lila stared at him like he'd offended her by speaking. Then she said it, like it was obvious. "Because you people need to know your place," she hissed. "You people." There it was. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a worldview, a policy in her head, a belief that humiliation is a tool. Mr. Ashford arrived 10 minutes later. He walked into the room and immediately felt the tension. "What is this?" he demanded. Mr. Grayson didn't explain with emotion. He showed him the footage. Mr. Ashford watched without blinking. When it ended, he turned slowly to Lila, and for the first time I saw him look at her like she wasn't family. He looked at her like she was a problem. "Is that true?" he asked. Lila tried to smile, tried to perform innocence. "You're going to believe a camera over me?" she said, attempting charm. Mr. Ashford's voice went cold. "I'm going to believe reality," he replied. Lila's charm collapsed into anger. "He was in my house," she snapped. "He doesn't belong—" Mr. Ashford slammed his hand lightly on the desk. "Stop." he said, and the room obeyed. He looked at me. Noah, he said, quiet. I'm sorry. Then he looked at my dad. Daniel, he said. I'm sorry. My dad couldn't speak. His throat worked, but no sound came out. Years of swallowing pride don't turn into words easily. Then Mr. Ashford did something I didn't expect. He turned to Lila and said, You will apologize. Properly. Now. Lila's eyes flared with humiliation. You're humiliating me. She spat. Mr. Ashford's gaze didn't move. No, he said. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure you don't do it again. Lila turned to me like the apology tasted like poison. I'm sorry, she said flatly. I didn't nod. I didn't accept it with a smile. I just looked at her and said the one thing that mattered. You didn't try to steal my dignity, I said calmly. You tried to prove you could take it, and you almost did. Her eyes narrowed. Almost. I nodded once. Until one thing happened. What? She snapped. I looked at Mr. Grayson's monitor. The truth stayed recorded, I said. And you didn't control it. Mr. Ashford turned to Mr. Grayson. Write a report, he said. And draft a policy. No searches, no detentions, no accusations acted on without corroboration. And review. Immediately. Mr. Grayson nodded. Mr. Ashford looked back at Lila. And you, he said, will lose access to staff for personal tasks. You will attend counseling. And you will not be present during staff family visits ever again. Lila's face twisted. You're choosing them over me, she hissed. Mr. Ashford's voice was quiet and final. I'm choosing what kind of house this is, he said. We left after that, not because we were kicked out, but because we were done. We didn't need more words. We didn't need revenge. We needed air. In the driveway, my dad stood beside the car with his keys in his hand, staring at the mansion like it had finally shown its teeth. I'm sorry, he said to me, voice tight. I wanted to keep you away from that. I looked at him. And for the first time, I understood how much of his life had been about absorbing insults, so I wouldn't have to. You didn't bring me there to be humiliated, I said. You brought me there because you trusted me. My dad's eyes glistened. And now? He whispered. I opened the passenger door, then paused and looked back at the gate. Now we don't pretend, I said. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that they can say anything about you until you have one piece of paper that doesn't care who they are. My dad frowned. What piece of paper? He asked. I nodded toward the security building where the report would be written, where timestamps would be stored, where the footage would live. The receipt, I said. Not the kind you get at a store, the kind that proves what happened. We got in the car and drove away, and the mansion stayed behind us, still shining, still huge, still pretending to be perfect. But I wasn't thinking about the marble or the chandelier anymore. I was thinking about how close I came to being labeled a thief because someone wanted to feel powerful, and how one receipt, one record, one timestamp, one undeniable fact had been the difference between me being humiliated for a day and me being humiliated for the rest of my life. I thought it was over the moment we drove off the property. I really did. Because in my head the cameras were the end of the story. Proof, resolution, the villain exposed. Everyone goes home. But the thing nobody tells you about humiliation is this. Even when you're proven innocent, the stain still tries to stick. People don't always remember the correction as loudly as they remember the accusation. And Lila wasn't the kind of person who could handle being corrected. Not by security, not by her stepfather, and definitely not by the chauffeur's son. That night, I was in my room scrolling on my phone, trying to distract my brain from replaying the atrium scene, when my dad knocked and stepped inside, like he didn't know where to put his hands. He held something between two fingers. A folded slip of paper. At first, I thought it was a note. Then I recognized the texture, the thickness, the faint glossy coating. It was a receipt. My dad's voice was quiet. "They found this." "Who?" I asked. He swallowed. "Mr. Grayson, in the bag." I blinked. "In the bag Lila gave me?" My dad nodded once, and suddenly my stomach turned, because I remembered something small that I hadn't thought mattered in the moment. When the bag hit the floor, tissue paper flew everywhere. Boxes shifted. Something thin had fluttered out and skidded under a console table near the staircase. In the chaos, nobody cared about a piece of paper. But paper is exactly what destroys lies. I sat up straighter. "What does it say?" My dad handed it to me, and I unfolded it carefully like it might explode. It was from the boutique, the same boutique name printed on the shopping bag, same logo. But the date wasn't today. It was 2 weeks ago. My eyes scanned the line items, and my throat went dry. One bracelet, diamond tennis bracelet, and next to it in tiny printed text I wouldn't have noticed if I weren't looking for something to grab onto. A serial number. A serial number that matched the little tag still attached to the bracelet's clasp in the footage. Mr. Grayson had zoomed in on it when he paused the frame. I stared at the receipt like it was a portal. "This proves it was hers," I whispered, more confused than triumphant. My dad shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "It proves something else." I looked up. My dad's eyes were tired, but there was a clarity in them that made my chest tighten. "She told everyone that bracelet was her grandmother's," he said. "That it was an heirloom. That it was priceless." I looked back at the receipt. 2 weeks ago. Boutique purchase. Not a family heirloom. A prop. A performance piece. A weapon she could throw into a bag and then cry about, like it was sacred. My hands tightened on the paper. "She lied about everything," I said. My dad nodded. "And that changes the story," he said. I didn't fully understand what he meant until the next morning, because that was when we learned the cameras were only half of it. The receipt was the other half. We went back to the estate the following day, not because we wanted to, but because Mr. Grayson requested it. His tone on the phone was calm, but urgent. "I need you both here," he'd said. "There's been an attempt to reframe what happened." That sentence hit my dad like a punch. Reframe is a rich person's favorite verb. It means, we'll keep the truth, but we'll change how it feels. When we arrived, the house wasn't quiet in the same way. It was tense. Staff moved like they were trying not to be noticed. Eyes flicked away quickly when we walked past, like they didn't want to be caught watching. Mr. Grayson met us at the side corridor again, and didn't waste a second. "She told Mr. Ashford this was a misunderstanding," he said as we walked. "She said you were disrespectful. She said you provoked her." My dad's jaw clenched. I kept my voice steady. "And he believed her?" "Mr." Grayson glanced at me. "He's listening," he said. "That's different." We entered the security room, and Mr. Grayson pulled up a folder on the screen. The footage was there. Timestamps, angles, zoomed frames. And beside it, scanned clean and crisp, was the receipt. My receipt. The one my dad had handed me like it was a fragile thing. Mr. Ashford entered 2 minutes later. He looked like a man who hadn't slept well. Not because he was tired, but because something had bothered his sense of control. "Show me," he said, not greeting anyone, not performing. Mr. Grayson did. He showed the footage again, but this time he didn't stop at the planting. He moved forward to where Lila's voice shook with outrage, and she called it an heirloom, a priceless family treasure, a symbol. Then he pulled up the receipt, and the air in the room changed, because now it wasn't just, she lied to accuse someone. Now it was, she lied to everyone, including him. Mr. Ashford's jaw tightened. He stared at the receipt for a long moment without speaking. My dad stood beside me like a wall. Finally, Mr. Ashford asked the question that mattered, voice low. "Where did you find this?" Mr. Grayson didn't look away from the screen. "It was inside the boutique bag," he said. "It slid under the table when the bag dropped." Mr. Ashford exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. "She kept the receipt," he murmured, like he was saying it to himself. Then he looked at me. "Noah," he said, and for the first time his voice carried something like apology that wasn't polite. "She said it was a family item." I nodded. "I heard her." Mr. Ashford's eyes hardened. "Which means she planned the story," he said. My dad's throat bobbed. "She planned to destroy my son," he said quietly. Mr. Ashford didn't argue. He didn't soften it. He nodded once like he accepted the reality. "She planned to humiliate him," he corrected. "And if it worked, it would have destroyed him." The way he said it made my chest tighten, because that was the first time someone like him spoke about the consequence like it was real. Then Mr. Ashford turned to Mr. Grayson. "Bring her," he said. My pulse jumped. I didn't want to see her again. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want to stand there while she tried to rewrite me into the villain. But I also knew this was how it ended. Not with me leaving quietly. With her being forced to face a record she couldn't talk her way around. Lila arrived 10 minutes later, like she'd been summoned to court but still thought she owned the judge. Her face was composed. Outfit perfect. Hair flawless. Her eyes sharp and dismissive. Then she saw me. And for a second, just a second, her expression flickered. Not fear. Annoyance. Like I was a problem that refused to disappear. "What is this?" she demanded, looking at Mr. Ashford. "Why am I being dragged into security like a criminal?" Mr. Ashford didn't raise his voice. "Because you acted like one," he said. Lila's mouth opened, and the indignation was automatic. "How dare you!" Mr. Grayson clicked a button, and the receipt appeared large on the screen. Lila's eyes went to it, and the color drained from her face so fast it was like watching a light turn off. Mr. Ashford leaned forward slightly. "You told everyone that bracelet was your grandmother's," he said. Lila's voice came out thinner. "It was—" Mr. Ashford cut her off with one sentence. "This receipt says otherwise," he said. Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear your own blood move. Lila swallowed. I saw her mind working, trying to build a new story. She was good at that. I could tell. People like her rehearse narratives the way athletes rehearse moves. "It was a replacement," she said quickly. "I had to—" Mr. Grayson spoke, calm, clinical. "It's not just the date," he said. "It's the serial number. It matches the bracelet. That means this is the bracelet." Lila's eyes darted. She shifted into anger as defense. "So what?" she snapped. "I bought it. It's mine. That doesn't change anything." Mr. Ashford stared at her. "It changes everything," he said quietly. "Because you didn't panic over an heirloom. You staged a scene using a purchase you could sacrifice. You used your own property as bait to accuse an innocent person." Lila lifted her chin, trying to regain power through arrogance. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's a bracelet." My dad flinched like she'd slapped him again. But before he could speak, I did. Not loud, not emotional, just clear. "It wasn't about the bracelet," I said. "It was about what you wanted everyone to believe about me." Lila's eyes snapped to mine. "You want to talk now?" I held her gaze. "I don't need to," I said. The record did it for me. That phrase hit her harder than I expected. I saw it. Her jaw tightened. Her nostrils flared. She wanted me to be angry. She wanted me to shout so she could point and say, "See? This is what they're like. I didn't give her that." Mr. Ashford stood up. "You will not be on this property without supervision," he said. "Effective immediately." Lila's eyes widened. "You can't—" "I can," he said. "And I will." She scoffed, pretending it didn't scare her. "You're choosing them over me," she hissed. "Mr." Ashford didn't flinch. "I'm choosing reality over your performance," he said. Lila's face tightened, and she tried one last pivot. She turned it into a social threat. "Do you know how this looks?" she snapped. "Your staff's kid accusing your daughter." Mr. Ashford's voice cut clean through it. "Stepdaughter," he corrected. That single word hit like a door slamming. Lila froze. Because that wasn't just semantics. That was status. That was him drawing a line she hadn't believed he'd draw. Her voice shook, just slightly as she recovered. "You're humiliating me," she whispered. Mr. Ashford's eyes stayed cold. "No," he said. "You humiliated him. I'm just removing your ability to do it again." Mr. Grayson stepped forward half a pace, not to threaten, but to end the conversation. "Miss Lila," he said. "This way." Lila didn't move at first. She stared at me, and her voice dropped, low enough that it felt like poison meant only for my ears. "This isn't over," she said. I nodded once, almost bored. "It already is," I replied, "because now you don't get to do it in the dark." That was the moment I saw real fear in her eyes. Not fear of punishment, fear of exposure. Because what she loved wasn't the bracelet. It was the ability to control what people believed. And the receipt proved she couldn't. After she left, Mr. Ashford looked at my dad. "Daniel," he said, voice lower, "I failed you yesterday." My dad's throat worked. "Sir," Mr. Ashford held up a hand. "No excuses," he said. "You gave me loyalty. I owed you protection. And I didn't realize how easily my house could be used as a weapon." My dad blinked, stunned, like he wasn't used to someone with power admitting fault without wrapping it in ego. Then Mr. Ashford looked at me. "Noah," he said, "I can't undo what you felt in that atrium." I nodded. "I know." He paused. "But I can do one thing," he said. "I can make sure the next time someone tries to use status as evidence, the house itself rejects it." My heart thudded. "How?" Mr. Ashford nodded toward Mr. Grayson. "Protocol," he said. "Written, enforced. No accusations acted on without verification. No searches without corroboration. No staff families treated as disposable." I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. Because this wasn't a victory lap. This was a correction that should have existed before I ever stepped through that door. We left the estate after that, and the drive felt different. Not because the world was suddenly fair, but because for the first time my dad wasn't silent. He spoke halfway home, voice quiet. "I kept thinking if I kept my head down, it would protect you," he said. I stared out the window, watching the city return. The normal houses, the normal sidewalks, the normal life that doesn't pretend to be perfect. "It protected me from seeing it," I replied. "Not from it happening." My dad exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," he said. I shook my head. "I'm not glad it happened," I said. "But I'm glad we didn't let it disappear." My dad glanced at me. "That receipt." I nodded. "That receipt saved us." He was quiet a second, then said something I'll never forget. "I've spent my whole life being careful," he said. "And it still almost wasn't enough." I turned to him. "It was enough," I said. "Because you taught me the one thing she didn't expect." He frowned. "What?" I held his gaze, calm and certain. "That I don't have to beat her at her game," I said. "I just have to keep the truth." That night, after everything with the receipt and the security room and Mr. Ashford's cold correction, I thought the story was finally sealed. I was wrong again. Because humiliation doesn't always come back as another scene. Sometimes it comes back as a whisper, a rumor, a version of events that spreads faster than facts because it's more entertaining than the truth. 2 days later, my dad came home with his shoulders tight and his face blank in the way people get when they're trying to protect you from something that's already leaking. "What happened?" I asked the moment I saw him. He didn't answer right away. He set his keys down carefully, like the sound might break something. "People are talking," he said. I felt my stomach drop. "At the estate?" He nodded. "They're saying you tried to flirt with her," he said quietly. "That you came onto her. That when she rejected you, you got angry, and then you tried to flip it on her with the cameras." For a second, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have words, because I couldn't believe how predictable it was. When she couldn't win with thief, she switched to creep. Because in that world, poor boys are always either criminals or threats. Never just people. My dad's voice tightened. "She's trying to make you look dangerous," he said. "Because if she can make people afraid of you, they won't care that she lied." I stared at the floor, breathing slowly, because I could feel anger rising and I didn't want it to take the wheel. "How far has it spread?" I asked. My dad shook his head. "I don't know. I heard it from 2 staff members. They said it like they didn't want to say it, but they said it anyway. That's how rumors survive. Good people pass them along, carefully." I grabbed my phone and stared at it. Part of me wanted to text Mr. Grayson immediately. Part of me wanted to never step near that house again. But then I remembered the receipt. The paper that didn't care who she was. The record that ended her performance. And I realized something. This rumor was another performance. So it needed another record. I called Mr. Grayson. He answered on the second ring like he'd been expecting my name to pop up. "Noah," he said. "I was going to call you." My chest tightened. "You heard." "Yes," he replied flat. "And it's exactly what we expected." I swallowed. "What do we do?" Mr. Grayson's voice stayed calm, but I could hear the edge underneath. "We finish it," he said. "Properly. He told us to come in that afternoon. When we arrived, Mr. Grayson didn't bring us into the security room first. He brought us into a smaller office near it. A neutral space with a table, a notepad, and that cold, clean feeling of places where truth gets documented. Mr. Ashford was already there. He looked irritated, not at us, at the situation. He gestured for us to sit, and my dad and I sat across from him. Mr. Ashford didn't waste time. "I've been informed about the rumor," he said. My dad's hands clenched together. "Sir?" Mr. Ashford lifted a hand. "I don't want reassurance," he said. "I want closure." Then he looked at Mr. Grayson. "Show them," he said. Mr. Grayson placed a folder on the table and slid it toward us. Inside was a printed report, timestamps, footage references, serial number verification, the receipt scan, and most importantly, a copy of the access logs showing who had attempted to tamper with the footage afterward. My dad's eyes widened as he read. This proves she tried to delete it," he whispered. Mr. Grayson nodded once. Mr. Ashford leaned forward slightly. "Lila is attempting to change the narrative," he said. "So I am removing her ability to do so." My pulse kicked. "How?" Mr. Ashford's gaze stayed steady. "First," he said, "a legal notice. She will be formally warned that further defamation will be met with consequences." My dad's jaw slackened slightly, like he couldn't believe a wealthy man would use legal language to protect a chauffeur. "Second," Mr. Ashford continued, "I'm informing my staff, not with gossip, with facts." I blinked. "You're going to tell them what happened?" Mr. Ashford's eyes didn't move. "Yes," he said, "because silence is where these stories breed. And I am responsible for the culture in my house." My throat tightened, not because I needed public vindication, but because the idea of a billionaire admitting responsibility felt unreal. Mr. Grayson added, "There will be a memo. Clear language. No names used as targets, but the policy will be explicit. No accusations are acted on without verification. Rumor spreading about staff or their families is unacceptable. My dad exhaled slowly. And Lila? He asked. Mr. Ashford's mouth tightened. She will not be living on the property for the foreseeable future, he said. My dad's eyes widened. Sir! Mr. Ashford didn't soften. I will not house someone who uses my home as a weapon, he said. That sentence landed like a door closing. It didn't erase what happened, but it ended the idea that she could do it again. Tomorrow. Mr. Ashford looked at me. Noah, he said, I want you to hear this clearly. Not because I need to say it, but because you deserve to know it. I held his gaze. You did nothing wrong, he said, and I am sorry you were treated like a suspect in a place where you should have been treated like a guest. I nodded once. Thank you. Then I surprised myself by saying something else. I don't want her destroyed, I said. I want her stopped. Mr. Grayson's expression shifted. Approval, maybe. Or relief. Mr. Ashford nodded. That's exactly what this is, he said. A stop. After the meeting, my dad and I walked out into the afternoon sun, and for the first time since all of this started, my dad's shoulders weren't up around his ears. He looked lighter. But as we got into the car, he stared at the steering wheel for a moment and said something that hit me harder than all the insults. You know what's scary? He asked, voice low. What? I replied. He swallowed. If there weren't cameras, if there wasn't that receipt, I think they would have believed her, he said. I nodded slowly because I'd been thinking the same thing. Yeah, I said. They would have. My dad's voice shook. And then what? He whispered. I looked out through the windshield at the road ahead, the normal road outside of rich gates and marble halls. Then we would have learned a different lesson, I said. That truth doesn't always win in places like that. He gripped the wheel. But it did win, he said, almost like he needed to say it out loud to believe it. I turned to him. It won because we didn't play her game, I said. We didn't beg. We didn't yell. We didn't try to be charming enough to be treated right. My dad glanced at me. Then what did we do? He asked. I held his gaze, calm. We kept evidence, I said. And we made the evidence impossible to ignore. My dad nodded slowly. We drove home, and later that week, something happened that felt like the real ending. Not a big announcement, not a press release, not a dramatic punishment. A quiet change. My dad came home with a new schedule and a new role. They moved him from chauffeur who waits quietly to senior driver coordinator, overseeing routes, training, and protocols. It wasn't charity. It wasn't a bribe. It was respect made tangible. And he held the letter that confirmed it like it might vanish. I don't know what to do with this, he admitted. I looked at him. You accept it, I said. Not because they're doing you a favor, because they're correcting what they should have done a long time ago. He nodded, eyes wet. Then he laughed softly. Once, in disbelief. All my life, he said. I thought dignity was something you earned by staying quiet. I shook my head. No, I replied. Dignity is something you protect by refusing to let people rewrite you. He stared at the letter again, then folded it carefully. And you, he said, voice thick. You didn't shrink. Not once. I felt my throat tighten. I almost did, I admitted. In that atrium? My dad looked at me. But you didn't, he said. I nodded. Because of one thing, I said. He frowned. The cameras? I shook my head. The receipt, I said. The proof that she wasn't just wrong, she was acting. I took a breath, letting the final truth settle. People like her don't fear confrontation, I said. They fear documentation. And that was the ending. Not that the billionaire's stepdaughter learned empathy. Not that the world suddenly became fair. but that the next time someone tried to humiliate my father's son in a marble hallway, the house wouldn't ask, "Who do we believe?" It would ask, "Where's the proof?" Because one receipt doesn't just expose a lie. It changes the rules. That week taught me something I'd never fully understood. When someone tries to humiliate you, the goal isn't to make you sad. It's to make you small. Because small people accept anything. Small people apologize for existing. Small people don't report, don't document, don't demand rules. And for a few minutes in that atrium, I almost became small. Almost. What saved me wasn't movie-style bravery. It was something much simpler and much colder. A piece of paper. And once that paper showed up, I saw a second truth that was even harder to swallow. It's not enough to prove you're right. You have to stop the lie from continuing to circulate as if it's the truth. Because that's exactly what Lila tried to do with the rumor. She couldn't call me a thief with the same force anymore, because the cameras had buried that version. So she tried a dirtier version, one that's harder to disprove without becoming the story, the version where I was dangerous. And for a moment I thought it would consume me, that I'd be trapped in a war with a rich girl who had time, influence, and an ego that needed to win. But then I realized what my advantage was. I didn't have to beat her at her game. I just had to take away her control of the board. 2 days after the meeting with the security chief and the printed report, my dad came home with his phone buzzing nonstop. He wasn't the kind of man who got messages all day. My dad got work calls, and that was it. This time it was texts. He showed me the screen without saying anything. An unknown number. "Your son loves playing the victim. I can end that." Another number. "Do you really want to lose your job because of a tantrum? Talk to your son." My stomach tightened. She was doing exactly what I expected. If she couldn't control me with direct fear, she'd try to control me through my father. I took a slow breath, gently took the phone from his hand, and said, "Don't reply." My dad looked at me like that was impossible. "But what if—" "Don't reply," I repeated. "We don't talk in the dark. We don't negotiate with threats." I photographed the screen, saved everything, wrote down the times. I did it calmly, like folding laundry. My dad stayed quiet, watching. "What did you turn into?" he asked, half worried, half impressed. I let out a short breath, almost a laugh. "I turned into someone who won't accept this anymore," I said. I forwarded everything to Mr. Grayson. Less than an hour later, he replied, "Received. Don't delete anything, thank you." And in that "thank you," I heard something that surprised me. Real respect. Not the forced respect people show when they discover you have status. Respect for behavior, for posture, for refusing to enter the chaos. That Friday, my dad came home carrying a thin folder like it was fragile. He set it on the table like it was sacred. "What is that?"